rights-based approach in the public sector sustainable development agenda. But before we delve into that, let's put on our magnifying glasses on now. How would how has the Commission been able to bridge the gap when we're talking protection, promotion of human rights issues in Nigeria?
That's the mandate of the Commission, which we have confronted with all our energies, and we realize that in making sure that the whole country is protected in their rights, it's not what the Commission can do alone. So our greatest strategy is to partner with stakeholders. We work a lot with civil society groups, we work a lot with MDAs, and human rights education is the key. We have offices in the 36 states as well as in FCT, and their primary strategy is continuous human rights education. We, at the state level, we are constantly interfacing with the schools so that we can catch them young, because we believe that if people are aware of their rights early through human rights education, they'll be able to protect themselves. And if they cannot protect themselves, at least they'll be able to know where to report to get assistance.
Yes.
And that is the strategy. And I think the awareness is ongoing. This has resulted in the kind of responses we get from the Commission. A lot of people now report the violation of their rights, which shows that there's growing awareness in the country. As at last year, we were receiving 1 million complaints in a year. And that is huge for this country. So
that is to say that a lot of rights are being trampled on, right?
Well. Yeah, that is one, but it shows that people now know how to complain about their rights. It's not as if before there were no complaints. These violations could even have been worse during the military regime, don't forget. But most people took it as a way of life. So if their rights were violated, well, that's how it is. So they don't complain, they don't talk to anybody. Okay. The awareness we have thrown up now has made them to realize, so we can have a right to complain. We can go and complain to somebody. So that is what we are witnessing.
Other than the awareness, could this also be a fallout of the polity, the democracy, the civilian regime we have, that people now also know that in a civilian setting, not a military government, that they would not be dealt with if they complain?
Certainly, it's all part of the dividends of democratic rule, because during a democracy, there is some air of relief that you are not working under pressure of a military man. So you have more ability to express yourself. You have more ability to access information and assistance. So this is one of the benefits of the civilian regime, and that's why we encourage that our country should never go back to military regime. Whatever it is, they say that the best military regime, the worst civilian regime is better than the best military regime. So it is one of the dividends of democracy which we have been enjoying since 1999.
Okay, I first want to commend this effort, this summit, and it's coming at a very strategic time when Nigeria is sitting on the UN Council on Rights. I don't know what the objectives of this conference are, but I just want to say that in looking at this conference that is starting tomorrow.
No, it's starting on Sunday.
Starting on Sunday.
Yes.
All right, starting on Sunday. I want to find out if the Commission is also looking into the regional and international instruments to which Nigeria is signatory, and to what extent Nigeria has lived up to the obligations arising from this instrument. Because I think it's necessary, if this summit is coming, those are some of the issues that will be built into the conference.
Yeah, certainly the conference is going to be all-encompassing. We're going to have sessions on civil and political rights, which will examine all the issues, all the instruments, both national instruments and international instruments, and how far Nigeria is moving in terms of fulfilling those obligations. We look at socio-economic rights. We look at the area of women and children. We look at the area of accountability and corruption. We look at the area of business and human rights. We look at the area of freedom of the press, freedom of the media. These are all areas. And as we examine this, there will be a panel of discussants that will look at the entire spectrum of issues, both in terms of national legislation, in terms of regional legislation, and other international instruments to which Nigeria is a party. The summit is also going to review the National Action Plan for Promotion and Protection of Human Rights in Nigeria. The first plan has already expired, so we are looking at the succession plan, which is going to be from 2020 to 2023. So there are a lot of issues that will be thrown up during the conference are going to look at the challenges we are still having in the area of human rights and what is the way forward. How do we, as a country, if there are challenges in any areas of human rights, how are we going to deal with them? Are we just going to look at them? So the conference will come up with an agenda for human rights in 2020. That means Nigerians, this is where we need to focus attention and deal with the issues arising.
Okay, if in view of what she has just mentioned, that's the Universal Periodic Review. Now, is this the first time the Commission will be holding a stakeholders summit on human rights? And if yes, what has kept us behind for this long? I'm talking about in view of the Universal Periodic Review that stands to, checkmate all of this. And why are we just bringing the dialogue on the table now? Actually,
the Human Rights Summit had been held some time before, like around 2001, 2002, 2003. But the unique nature of this one, of course, that one couldn't be sustained. It terminated about the second or third Human Rights Summit. But the peculiar nature of this one is it is a fulfillment of Nigeria's international obligation, because it is one of the commitments, one of the recommendations Nigeria accepted during the 2009 periodic review of Nigeria and subsequent periodic review, that there is need for a national avenue to dialogue on human rights. So that is why we termed it Human Rights Summit. And it's going to be a yearly event when all facets of society, MDAs, civil society, diplomatic community, everybody who is involved in the human rights work, because it is also an awareness creation. A lot of people don't know that the work they're doing pertains to human rights, like education, like health, like good roads, electricity. All these issues are human rights issues. So it's a platform where we want government agencies to come and give account of what they're doing to promote and protect human rights in their sector. And civil society will also come and raise issues which they think have not been dealt with, that these are still challenges. So both will now agree that, okay, moving forward, we think we should focus on this and that, so that our country will keep progressing. And that informs the recommendation at UPR that a forum like this is very important for a country like ours, where there are so many different ethnic groups, many religious groups, all kinds of interests. So you must have an agreement on where to focus on human rights, so that we will channel our energies, so that if we conquer the challenges in that area, next time we can move to another area of challenges, and also new challenges will come up anyway. Life is like that. But the important thing is there is a plan to deal with these challenges. The challenges can never be exhausted, but we must have a plan. We have a national action plan for promotion and protection of human rights. The values, the changes, the challenges keep changing from time to time. The need for monitoring bodies, the need for civil society, the need for government to play their role to fulfill both our national legislation and international obligations. All this will come to play during the conference.
Is there an international dimension to this summit? Because I also know that there is an international body that assesses countries on their human rights performances. Will this summit be like a forum to package Nigeria's status for the international.
Yeah, the international dimension of this summit is, you remember, under most of the international instruments, there are reporting obligations. Now, how do you get the information you need to feed into the reporting obligation system? It is through this kind of summit, because you are going to be able to, is both a monitoring mechanism, is a stock-taking mechanism, and the information arising from this summit will help Nigeria in preparing her reporting obligations on all these international instruments. So that's the international dimension of this. So it's a very, very crucial summit, which I think all arms of the Nigerian society should take serious.
Okay, most often Nigeria's assessment of human rights performance is always done by Amnesty International and other civil rights organizations. I just want to find out, because we cannot continue to take their own assessment or recommendation as against what is actually obtained here. I want to know what the Commission is doing, to also vis-a-vis look at our own situation from our own perspective, not from the perspective of assessment of those who are not in Nigeria and comes every year to put up this record that the human rights situation in Nigeria is not what it should be. So I want to find out whether there is an internal mechanism from the Commission for assessing periodically, so that by the time you're getting to the international level on reporting on, as you have just said, then Nigeria will have a critical assessment of what is obtained here, not assessment as per those who have assessed us living outside the country.
Yeah, for the Human Rights Commission, monitoring is a key aspect of our work. Of course, that's the department I headed until I became Executive Secretary. And one of the strategies we put in place is we'll have what we call State of Human Rights Report. It's a yearly report by the Commission which gives a clear picture of where the pendulum of human rights protection and violation is going in the country. Now, the essence of that, the concept based on which that report was established, was to have an autochthonous system, an indigenous system of saying what the situation of human rights is, so that when Amnesty or Human Rights Watch or any other, they are not so foreign as in quote, because they stay in Nigeria. Most of them are also Nigerians, so that, but that forms a basis you can use to assess what they're saying, because in that report we show what is happening and what is being done. So when they publish their own report, you can now juxtapose both and see what is the credibility level. But going forward, we are trying to forge partnerships with all the people who comment on Nigeria, whether it's the U.S. State of the Union report, whether it's the Amnesty International, whether it's Human Rights Watch. We urge them to always share their reports with us before they go public, so that we can give them our own view. It's always good to give a balanced reporting. I mean, for media executives, you call it investigative journalism. It is good to say, if this person has done this, but this is what he said when he was asked to say. Then you report without giving the other side of the story. It's like you're building a one-sided story.
Okay, but let's narrow it down to Nigeria, away from the international angle of it. Now, part of what you're saying, the summit will also x-ray the monitoring and assessing of human rights situations in the country, and also serve as a tool to lobby states and also non-state actors. Yes. Now, before now, how has the Commission been able to engage state governments and non-state actors in x-raying, protection, promotion, and enforcement of human rights in the country?
Yeah, like I said, we have a department that monitors human rights violations in the country. Now, we build the capacity of state governments to be able to play their role in the arena of human rights. For instance, the issue of child rights. You remember when the Child Rights Act was adopted at the national level in 2003? now we embarked on a campaign to get the states to domesticate the child rights law. We have not yet done 100% because not all the states have domesticated the Child Rights Act, but a reasonable number of states, at least just about 11.
Is that something you're also looking at?
Yes,
okay.
that's the kind of thing we're looking at. Now, in the area of education, we encourage states to make sure that the content of their education also has human rights education, and that a lot of children are not on the streets. So we encourage things like school enrollment to make sure that children can have the benefits of the Child Rights Act. There is a Child Rights Implementation Committee in every state, and part of what they are supposed to do is to create awareness, to encourage families, parents, to make sure that they give their children the opportunity to take the benefits of the law, to take the benefits of the Constitution, the Universal Basic Education Act, which has made it compulsory for every child to go to school, at least up to a certain level. So these are the kind of things we do. So now, even the summit is going to be like, we have human rights awards that are going to come up during the summit. The essence of this human rights award is to encourage good governance, to encourage human rights defenders, to encourage all facets of society who are doing one thing or the other that is unique, that is helping to deepen our democracy, that is helping to deepen our development of a culture of respect for human rights. And it can come in several forms. It could be people who are empowering people. It could be people who are making sure that children are getting human rights education. It could be people who are making sure that there is infrastructure that will help to have peace, because when there is conflict, human rights is the major casualty. If there is, once there is any disturbance, people's rights are going to be violated. People are going to be displaced. People are going to people are going to be tortured. People are going to be detained. So all these things help to affect the situation of human rights in a country. So we are looking at this summit to x-ray all these things, and make part of it is also to mainstream human rights into the activities of government. MDAs. How do we attain the sustainable development goals if we don't respect human rights?
Which is what the theme you haven't
Which
talked
is what the
about
theme is. And at times, those government agencies don't see their work as having anything to do with human rights. So part of this summit is to raise that consciousness in them, to understand that when you are providing housing for people, you are dealing with human rights, because every human being is supposed to have shelter over his head. When you are dealing in the area of health, you don't look at it as a privilege. It is a right, because if you don't have medical attention, you will die, and your right to life will be exterminated. We want government agencies to see the interconnection between what they are doing and respect for rights and protection of human rights. So when they are now seeing files on their table, they can see that this file is not just a piece of paper. That this file, treating this file early, can save somebody's life, can help so that there won't be pothole on the roads and somebody can have an accident and die.
But will it give individuals an edge to also stand up for their rights?
Of course, the individuals will now know that, this government agency that is supposed to do this, if it's not doing this, it can affect my right to life. So you will now question, you will now demand that government agency should do what it's supposed to do.
Okay,
so,
what is your level of collaboration, at least especially with the security operatives? Oftentimes, they are always fingered at the point of abuse of human rights. I want to know the level of collaboration. And then, as you're collaborating with the security agencies on these issues, what about the citizens, those who are also supposed to know when their rights are breached, what procedure they're going to take, the action they need to take, because this issue keeps occurring all the time. And the security agencies are always at the top. If you look at the situation today, everybody feels that the human rights violations in Nigeria, are increasing day by day, and the commission is there to manage the situation as part of your mandate. I want to see, is there that nexus, between your commission and the security operatives on constantly educating them on what to do when they engage the public?
Yeah, this is one of the areas we identified as an area of challenge. And the reason is very obvious. We must look at our history. We're people that have been governed by the military for a very long time. And the consequence of that is that security agencies saw themselves as superior to the ordinary citizen. You remember the statement about bloody civilian, So with that mentality, of course, one of the greatest casualties in the military regime is respect for human rights. In fact, once the military government takes over, chapter 4 of the Constitution is suspended. So you can't even talk about your rights. Now, being conscious of that, the major challenge to human rights protection in the country are the activities of security agencies, law enforcement agencies. We're dealing with the issue of police, we're dealing with the issue of military, we're dealing with the issue of customs, we're dealing with the issue of prisons, and so on and so forth. And that is why even the international instrument requires that government has the primary responsibility to promote and protect human rights. Again, government is also the major violator of human rights because all these agencies are agencies of government. They have the coercive power more than the individual. So what have we done? Because of our history, if somebody has never experienced military regime, it may not be as the same kind of situation we have faced here. But since that is part of our history, we are conscious of that, so we engage law enforcement agents. Now, we have done massive training for the police, we've done massive training for the military, we audit detention centers of the police, we audit detention centers of the prisons, we audit detention centers of the military. All these things are aimed at excavating issues of violations and also teaching them what to do. Now, part of this is to mainstream human rights into governance. For instance, for the military, we have established what we call Human Rights Military Dialogue. That dialogue is aimed at, because before, if the military carries out any violations and because our act says we should investigate, you could all call them to give an account of what they will not talk to you. Because that mentality of superiority of military to civilian is a carryover. But we make them understand this is now a democratic regime. Military is under civil authority. Luckily, this present military regime, the present hierarchy of the Nigerian military is very conscious of the fact that they are working under civilian regime. So we have made a lot of inroads. We established the quarterly military human rights dialogue. You can see that they have even established a Department of Civil Military Relations.
Yes.
All these are targeted at softening them and making them to realize that they are working.
Even the police desk,
yes,
human rights desk.
We have the human rights desk now. That military dialogue with NHRC, one of the recommendations which has been implemented is the establishment of human rights desks in all military formations. This has been carried out. Also, a human rights advisor to the Office of the Chief of General Staff has also been established. Now, we are building the capacity. In fact, the human rights desk in the military is not inside the military headquarters. It's brought out, out of the gate, so that people will not be afraid.
Outsiders can access it.
And the people who work there, the military officers who work there, don't wear uniform.
Are you also exploring artificial intelligence and the social media? Because that is also one aspect you can really, look into to expand the course, to expand the scope.
Yeah, of course. I mean, modern day work, you need social media to expand your work. So it is one of the strategic work plan of the Commission to have a media strategy, to have a communication strategy, so that we can leverage on the advantages of social media because this country is just big.
And oftentimes
It's
that
huge.
is where you get to see most of these rights that are violated, being uploaded.
Yeah, for instance, part of our communication strategy says that anybody can access us through the social media. Now, you don't have to come physically to the Commission, and we don't even need to wait for somebody to make a complaint. If we see a violation in social media, we act on it. We call it suo motu cases. So nobody has reported this case, but it is something of concern to the public. We take it up. Social media helps us to get access to information from remote corners in this country, where we are not, because we are only at the state capitals, for instance. We are not in all the local governments. So it's a very useful tool for us to access information on where violations are going. And now we wade into this. So it's a very important tool for us.
Mr. Ojukwu, yours is a governmental organization. You are constituted by government. I do not know whether the act establishing the Human Rights Commission gives you a measure of independence as not to draw you at loggerheads with your employers, the government.
Well, by the Paris Principles, which is the guidelines for establishment of national human rights institutions all over the world, the national human rights institutions are established by government as a matter of international obligation. Because if you leave it to the will of certain countries, they may not want to establish Human Rights Commission. But it's an international obligation flowing out of the resolution of the United Nations that every country must establish a national human rights institution relative to their environment for the promotion and protection of human rights. And under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, government has the primary responsibility for respecting, protecting, and promoting human rights. So government has an obligation to establish a national human rights institution. But at the same time, it says that body, having been established, must also be independent of government.
Okay, let's take you more on this summit that is coming. The summit, no doubt, will be paying attention to agenda setting and policy appraisal. From what perspective is the summit going to look at it?
Well, we're looking at, for instance, the laws being made in Nigeria. How are these laws improving the situation of human rights? We are proposing to the National Assembly that what should be is that there should be a human rights impact assessment of any new legislation coming in. They must be able to say, this legislation coming in now is going to improve the situation of enjoyment of human rights, not reducing the existing level of enjoyment of human rights. That should be the test that will pass before Parliament will do that.
While you are explaining that,
yes.
Since you just explained that you could also take up an human rights violation suo motu, can you take up a bill that is before the National Assembly that you think might impinge on human rights suo motu without anybody passing it on to you to vet?
Of course. Once any bill is on the floor and we get to know about it, the first thing we do, any bill we see on the floor of the National Assembly, we look at it, we'll quickly go through it. And if we notice anything, we'll complain. We'll do a memo, we'll write our memo and give our opinion to the National Assembly. But in addition to that, most of the bills before the National Assembly go through a public hearing. And the Commission is always there at all the public hearings in the National Assembly to give our own perspective of what we think should be. And there is even something which the President has introduced now. Before the President signs most laws, he writes to the National Human Rights Commission and asking for our advice on the human rights implications and whether he should sign the bill. this president has been very consistent on that. You may not know that, but I'm saying it here. Okay. They send this bill to us to assess and advise the president on whether he should sign the bill or not, based on our human rights assessment of the bill.
And I know one bill that has really touched the lives of some certain people in the country is the discrimination, the act. Yeah. For the discrimination of persons or living with disabilities.
Yes.
Now, just a few days ago, they celebrated their day. I don't know if this falls under your purview, but it should. The implementation is part of the outcry for this set of persons. Are they going to be part of this participants for the summit? Because if you're going to be engaging different stakeholders, are they included?
Yeah, we have invited them to the summit because we invited all sections of. In fact, there's a website for this. It's open registration, so all aspects of society are invited, and there's room for everybody to canvass his own opinion. We have about 6 parallel sessions that will be going on. So every area of endeavor, civil and political rights, economic, social and cultural rights, women and children and vulnerable groups, which is where the person with disabilities fall in. So they all have their own platforms where they can canvass their issues, raise comments on policies, and of course you know that recommendations of the Commission to the government are taken very seriously. So it's a good opportunity for anybody who feels strongly and is able to make a case to come and make his case, because when the recommendations go to government, it's taken very seriously.
Like Ruth said now, Ruth raised the issue of implementation.
Yes, that's what
Nigeria is very good at churning out laws, but at the stage of implementation and enforcement, that is where we have issues. So I don't know whether your commission is going to make an input into facilitating the implementation, because once these laws are not implemented, Nigerians, it cannot be enforced. Nigerians can benefit from them. Yes. So it's also important that as we are advocating for human rights changes, implementation of laws that affect the rights and privileges of Nigerians should also be a part of the Commission's mandate.
Yeah, that's we take that very seriously. Part of our strategic work plan is to fulfill our mandate, which is to make sure that the country fulfills its obligations. What is obligation? If you have a law which you have set up for yourself, it's a voluntary thing. Nobody has forced you to either ratify a law or pass an act. So is a football, is a match you have set for yourself. So nobody's imposing it on you. Why don't you fulfill? For instance, this summit now is part of obligations Nigeria entered into under Universal Periodic Review. So it is going to throw up issues. For instance, if you have ratified the treaty, why are you not domesticating it? You ought to take the full step of domesticating so that the citizens can take advantage of it. Okay. If the Convention on the Rights of Child was not domesticated, we won't be talking about adoption of a child rights law in all the states now. For instance, we did an activity last week in collaboration with ECOWAS Parliament and other NHRCs, which is on the rights of older persons. Now, that is a protocol under the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. There's a protocol for the protection of the right of older persons. That workshop was to draw the attention of government that your heads of states and governments have passed this treaty at the African Union level. Why are you not taking steps in the country to make sure that the benefits accrue to you? That is part of the implementation you are talking about.
Well, Barrister Ojukwu, as you were just talking, it just hit me now. There's a lot of rights hanging on the Commission's neck.
Certainly, that's our duty.
How is the capacity? What would you say about the manpower? Does the Commission have the capacity?
I think we are trying within the manpower we have. We can never have enough manpower anyway, because of course the resources can never be enough to hire the kind of intellectuals, the kind of capacity you need. But you must take advantage of what you have and do your best, and that is what we're trying to do. And I must also commend the government, because in this year's budget, you could see the president singled out National Human Rights Commission and supported us in the budget. I think that is an admission of the fact that the work we are doing is enormous, and we need all the support. But it's not the federal government alone that should support us, because human rights is for everybody. NTA is supporting us now by allowing us to use this platform to create awareness.
Which is why it's platform.
Yeah, exactly. So we also encourage the donor community. We encourage multinational corporations. We encourage well-meaning individuals. They can have paid projects. The other day, we just launched a project on the infanticide with ActionAid. You can't believe that in some parts of the FCT, children are still being killed because they are twins, or because their mother, the mother died during the delivery. They are now killed. We are now mounting campaign and sensitization in those communities to see that they get out of this kind of thing.
So what are the activities lined up for the 3-day summit? Let's get to that.
The 3-day summit will start on Sunday with the high-level section, where we expect all the arms of government to come and make a statement on human rights at the summit. Then at the high-level section on Sunday, we are going to have awards which has been advertised, and the people have been voting. Nigerians have been voting for several categories of the awardees. You know, maybe those in the individual category, those among the CSOs, those among the philanthropic organizations, those amongst the state governments, and so on and so forth.
What about the media?
Of course, media is part of the civil society and also part of MDAs. Okay. So people have been voting, and the voting stopped yesterday. So today we are releasing the result of the voting, and then those who have been who will be conferred the awards on Sunday. And of course, there will be a dinner on that Sunday. Then on Monday, we will now have the technical sessions, which are going to be on civil and political. The main plenary will be on civil and political rights because of the nature of issues, administration of justice. The Attorney General will be there, and state attorney generals, state agencies, they will all be there with civil society. Then we now have parallel sessions which will be running. You know, those who are interested in women and children and vulnerable groups, they have a hall where they'll be discussing their own and the issues arising there. We have people who will be talking about business and human rights. It's a new area which we think that a lot of people in business, they think that is to make profit, therefore you can violate human rights. We say no. What is sustainable is making profit and respecting human rights. So we have a section that will discuss on that. We have social and economic rights. We are talking about right to education, right to health. These are some areas where most of our citizens don't even know they have rights. So we are going to deal with the service providers in these areas. What are they doing? What are the civil society groups also doing to make sure that these rights in those areas that will put food on the table, that will raise the standard of living of our people? Poverty issues. Poverty is a human rights violation.
Yes.
We need to be able to deal with that in that conference. Then the issue of corruption and accountability, which everybody agrees. Corruption is the main cause of poverty in this country. And what kind of human rights violation is poverty? Because if you are a poor man, you don't even remember you have a right. A hungry man is an angry man. So all these sessions should be going on. Now, Tuesday, 10th, is the International Human Rights Day all over the world. So this is a build-up to celebration of the International Human Rights Day, which is coming up on Tuesday the 10th. We're starting on the 8th and we're ending on the 10th. And that International Human Rights Day will now celebrate that God has given us human rights. And we call upon everybody to make sure that these rights go to everybody without discrimination, without let or hindrance. We will read messages from the United Nations Secretary General. We read messages from the United Nations High Commissioner on Human Rights. We read message from the country team on the UN in Nigeria, the UNDP. We read messages from myself, from the parliament, all sectors of the society that want to give human rights messages to Nigerians. They will meet at the Human Rights Commission on the 10th. The other activities will be in Sheraton on the 8th and 9th. But on the 10th, we will have a road walk from Eagle Square celebrating our human rights. Is it open to the general public? Everybody, every Nigerian is invited to come and join. We sing, we dance from Eagle Square with band and music, with posters celebrating various aspects of human rights, and then we end up at the premises of the National Human Rights Commission. And when we get there, these messages will now be relayed to everybody, and then we that's how we now cap it up Tuesday.
All right. Is this summit going to look at the role of non-state actors in human rights violations? They are a principal part of violations in human rights.
Excuse me.
Is it a helpless situation?
Yeah, all right, before you answer that question, I want to bring in the fact that the Universal Periodic Review Mechanism made 290 recommendations for Nigeria, especially the issues that deal with discrimination against all forms of evil against women. I don't know whether the Commission is looking at in those recommendations, whether you're going to build it into this conference or whether you're going to create a special platform whereby you begin to look at these 290 recommendations, especially the issues that deal with women's rights.
Like I said, this is an all-encompassing summit. Don't forget that the summit was as a result of UPR recommendations. And for us, we see it as an international obligation of Nigeria to look at all these recommendations of the UPR. The one you're talking about women will be taken in the women's section. Other recommendations will fit into the various parallel sessions that will go on during the day. And on women, the Commission has been championing the rights of women. Last year, during the last National Assembly, we, in partnership with civil society organizations and UNDP, we proposed a bill in Parliament on women participation in politics, because we noticed that the way the elections were going, the way women were being intimidated, that it is possible very soon women will fizzle out in elective office. And our fears came true in the last National Assembly election results. You know, the number of women in the National Assembly has crashed. And if it continues to crash like this unchecked, by the next round of elections, you may be sure that there may likely be no woman in the National Assembly. So,
and the one that was killed.
And the one was killed, exactly. You can see what happened in Kogi. The women were in my office yesterday. They received them yesterday. They brought a petition which we are going to relate with the Inspector General of Police and the Commissioner of Police. Already, of course, the President has directed that the killers of that woman must be caught. So we want to lend our voice to the law enforcement agents to do all that is possible to make sure that the killers are found and are prosecuted.
Okay, Femi also asked a question on the non-actors.
The non-actors, like Femi asked, I didn't mention the session. There's a session on insurgency and the humanitarian issues arising from that. That is going to look at the action of non-state actors that is creating a lot of problems for Nigeria. Well, the challenge with non-state actors is that the engagement process is a little bit difficult. But what we are doing is, those who have been arrested as Boko Haram, for instance, we don't encourage them. In fact, they are not to be treated like non-citizens. You must pass through the judicial process, you know, and give them fair hearing before you convict them. Of course, we have been partnering with the Federal Ministry of Justice to try the Boko Haram people who have been suspects, exactly. Okay. We've done the trials in Kainji. We have gotten notice now to move over to Maiduguri for the next round of trials of Boko Haram suspects in general. Just to give them an example that it is not right to just come to the marketplace and start killing everybody. You know,
right.
if anybody has committed an offense, he must pass through a judicial process that can pronounce the person guilty.
So at the end
Tony,
of this conference, what are
I'm
we looking
afraid
at? The human rights
we have
status?
to round up. We're out of time. I know there's so much, you know, to be reeled out here, but that's why the summit is just on the way from the 8th to the 10th of December. So I know Nigerians are already looking forward to it. Thank you very much. And yes, for those who want to participate, there's a website you can go to. That is www.humanrightsummit.ng. And there's another one, www.nhrc.gov.ng. And also, the Twitter handle is at NHRC. Send in your tweets to be part of the summit. Like Barrister Ojukwu said, it's open to everybody. You can be a part of it. Thank you so much. It's been nice having you on the platform. And yes, there's so much we'll continue to talk about when it has to do with protecting our rights. Barrister Tony Ojukwu is Executive Secretary, National Human Rights Commission, and we've been looking at the summit on stakeholders, stakeholders summit on human rights. Thank you very much. And also on the panel has been Mrs. Vera Chunwuba. She's the head NTA Judiciary Desk and a lawyer. I know she's not had enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And also Mr. Femi Okewo, a renowned journalist with NTA and a barrister, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nice to be here. Thanks.
It's a pleasure having you all on board, and it's been an honor, you know, being in the midst of learned, I won't call them colleagues yet. All right, so that has been Platform. We've been x-raying the summit coming up from the 8th to the 10th of December, organized by the National Human Rights Commission. If you want to protect your right is your right, and you should be aware of it. That summit is one thing that you should be part of. Thank you very much for being a part of the program. It's been Platform, and I've been your host, Ruth Aguela. Bye.
Platforms: Facebook at NTA Network News, Instagram at NTA Network, Twitter at NTA News Now, YouTube at NTA News Online. All visit www.nta.ng. For live streaming, visit www.nta.ng/live. Now, you can stay updated on the go, be it on your TV, iPhone, laptop, or iPad, or download the NTA mobile application from your Play Store or App Store. NTA, you can beat the rich.